Demons taking over, we gon' be the ones to slay 'em. I learned from the best, now these bodies bout to drop. Everybody get to running, cause you bout to lose the top. We'll tell the Demon King that we gon' take it back. Be ready with them weapons, keep it on our backs.
Okay.
Not in the military, but I'm still a soldier. If any king gon' fear me when I take it over.
Episode 6. The Ballad of the Beasts. We just gotta keep running. Omari yelled to Zuri, their lives still very much on the line. It was Zuri who had urged him to try his powers again, despite his warnings that they weren't working. When Omari glanced back at the gorilla, its eyes were normal. For a split second, hope flickered, but then its eyes blazed red once more, crushing his spirits. Still, he tried to lift the gorilla, but it was no use. It was clear now, this gorilla was gifted too. "You're not strong enough to use your powers on me," the huge gorilla taunted, slamming a fist into the ground, its eyes still glowing menacingly. Each strike sent out small shockwaves, shaking the earth itself. Because it only used one hand, the shockwaves weren't as intense as before, but the vibrations still caused Omari and Zuri to stumble. Pounding after them, the gorilla relentlessly hammered the ground, trying to send shockwaves one after another. Seeing Omari and Zuri almost fall had given it an idea. With the same arm, the gorilla repeatedly smashed its fist into the ground. Boom, 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 with only seconds between each impact. Omari and Zuri did their best to keep running, but the relentless shockwaves made it incredibly difficult. Zuri struggled the most. She stumbled, momentarily losing her balance until she collapsed completely. The shockwaves persisted, relentlessly battering her. Zuri found it nearly impossible to regain her footing, all while the massive gorilla steadily advanced. Oblivious to her fall, Omari pressed on, straining to run faster until Zuri's shout pierced through the chaos. "Hey!" Startled, Omari spun around, his eyes widening as he registered the scene behind him. Zuri was no longer right behind him, but sprawled on the ground, looking up at him with a pained expression. The distance between them now stretched to at least 10 yards. Omari had come to a halt, then he looked at the gorilla. The massive beast was mere seconds from being right on top of her. Get up, Omari shouted. "Help me," Zuri shouted back right before turning to her back, leaning up just slightly with her arms flat on the ground to support her. The gorilla was upon her in an instant, eyes glowing red, fist clenched, ready to deliver a devastating blow that would end her life with just one punch. Zuri screamed, and the gorilla paused, taking a moment to glance at Omari to make sure he wouldn't get attacked on the sly. While doing so, he saw Omari just standing in place with terrified written on his forehead. A cruel smile had spread across the gorilla's face. He was confident in his victory. Little did the gorilla know, while he stood in terror, Omari was also desperately racking his brain, searching for any solution. He was too far away, the gorilla far too close to Zuri. He couldn't reach her in time. And the truth was, he was just as scared as Zuri. His powers were useless against this beast. Those glowing red eyes seemed to nullify his abilities. He'd already tried 3 times without success. Looking down at his hands, Omari realized he was still clutching the axe. It was his father's, and he'd instinctively held onto it, thinking he'd need to return it if they escaped. The weight hadn't slowed him down, but could it be a weapon? A desperate thought sparked in his mind. It was his only chance. Omari gripped the axe with both hands, adrenaline coursing through him. He hefted it, the weight familiar and comforting, then, with a desperate yell, hurled it towards the gorilla, as if he were a contestant in an axe-throwing competition. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. The axe spun through the air, closing the distance fast. But the gorilla, never taking its malevolent eyes off Omari, anticipated the move. With a powerful leap, it dodged the flying axe with ease. If Omari had waited just a few seconds longer, when the gorilla's attention shifted back to Zuri, the axe might have found its mark, burying itself in the beast's chest. The gorilla landed on all fours after effortlessly dodging the axe, a cruel grin twisting its lips once more. The game was over. He tensed, coiling his massive frame, readying his fist to deliver the final blow to Zuri. This time, there was no amusement in his eyes, only cold, predatory intent. This was it, the strike that would end her life. Just as he coiled to unleash the devastating punch, a searing pain ripped through his back, the force of it staggering him. A guttural roar escaped his throat, more of shock than agony. What the? The thought barely formed in his mind before the pain intensified, a piercing fire that robbed him of his focus. The killing blow meant for Zuri died in his clenched fist. The gorilla had been so sure of his victory. Dodging the axe, he believed, had sealed the boy's fate. He was wrong. What he hadn't counted on was Omari's telekinetic power, which he used to control the axe that time. Turning it around in midair, it flew like a lethal boomerang. It hurtled back, piercing the gorilla's back with brutal force. Zuri scrambled to her feet, and together they bolted back towards the village, leaving the ape behind. The creature danced a furious jig of pain, swatting at the air, utterly unable to reach the embedded axe. "Thank you, Omari. That was smart thinking," Zuri said as they both continued sprinting. With Omari and Zuri gone, the abnormally large ape stomped and raged, the axe a painful reminder embedded in his back. He swatted uselessly, unable to reach the offending object. Finally, defeated, he lumbered back the way he'd come, seemingly forgetting all about the two animals he already caught before Omari and Zuri had become his next targets. Moving as fast as his legs could carry him, the ape ran until he could finally hear voices and the sounds of movement. A Caucasian woman with long white hair, a thick figure, and standing about 5'7", was giving orders. Her dark eyes scanned the scene as her light gray tail swished back and forth, matching the color of her hair. She stood next to a large wagon on 4 wheels. "Come on, let's load it up," she commanded. Her garments suggested she was far from wealthy. In fact, she looked poor. Her clothing resembled old, dirty rags that barely covered her, mainly concealing her private areas. The rags were brown and appeared as though they had never been washed. The group she commanded consisted of nude individuals, both men and women, who were loading dead animals into the wagon she stood beside. She watched as they did all the work, picking the carcasses off the ground and tossing them into the wagon. Georgina, help," he yelled. "Kong," she asked, looking in his direction. Immediately, everyone could see the large ape running toward them. "Kong, did you not hunt? Where is your prey?" she asked in a stern manner. "My apologies, Miss Georgina. There was some trouble during my hunt," he said with a pained expression. "What trouble? And what is the matter with you? Explain now. Why are you acting like that?" Without saying another word, Kong did a 180-degree turn, and everyone could see the axe in his back. Everyone gasped and oahed, stopping what they were doing. "Who did that to you?" she demanded, moving from her position and walking toward Kong. "I found these humans. Although there weren't as many as I hoped, I thought they would be a decent snack for you, the other pack lords, and the king. But somehow, they managed to do this to me. Come down here so I can get the axe out of your back." Listening without hesitation, Kong's body transformed into that of a human, naked, hairy, and with bigger hands than of a regular human male. Coming out of his rear, he was a Caucasian male but with a darker tone than the rest. Gripping the axe, she used her strength to pull it out of his back. A large trail of blood followed, trailing down to the back of his legs. Ripping off her garments, she used them to wrap around Kong, covering the wound. Now she was just as nude as the rest, no longer leaving anything to the imagination. "Come on, let's finish loading up so we can go. He's still bleeding pretty badly," she said, watching her rag garments get redder by the second. The group continued to load the wagon with the prey they all caught, everyone but Kong, who just sat down on the ground until they were done. "Time to go," she said right before transforming, and so did the rest. Similar to Kong, she was also 13 feet tall. However, unlike Kong, she was no ape. She had transformed into a dire wolf. On all fours, she was 13 feet tall, with light gray fur that almost looked white, and long tusks as well. When the others transformed, they were a group of hyenas, grizzly bears, and other apes just like Kong, no less than 12 foot tall. One ape went in front of the wagon, another ape in the back. Using only one arm each, they lifted the entire wagon with ease, as if it were just a simple chair. "Stay in your human form, Kong. If you transform, you'll just rip out those garments. You can ride on my back." Nodding in response to Georgina, he stood to his feet and took a few steps closer to her. Giving him a boost, one of the grizzly bears stomped its feet, and within seconds, the ground beneath Kong rose in a sort of circular platform only meant for him. After getting on the dire wolf's back, they were ready to move forward in a certain direction, miles west of Wakahira. By the people who knew of these creatures, they were referred to as beast people. Simple and explains exactly what they are, so they went with it. Beasts that can turn into people with minor animal-like defects. They had migrated about 15 or so miles of Wakahira in search of something important. after escaping their home village many years ago, bred by a king whose biggest ambition was to be the biggest dictator in the world. However, they had traveled about 10 miles to their location to begin their hunt. For these abnormally sized beasts, traveling 10 or so miles back to their village took less than half the time of a human traveling with a large load, especially when moving through the woods. They hadn't paid much attention to Wakahira, but were they about to? The group reached the beast village, which sat in the middle of the woods with many large cabins made of wood, straw, and whatever they could get their hands on. Most of the cabins were separated, while some connected together like townhouses. It was like they had built an actual village in the woods. Reaching the village courtyard, the group stopped. Without any need of announcing their arrival, the beasts noticed them and started to come forward. The castle sat about a mile from the courtyard. It wasn't built like the castles humans had, but more like a series of cabins stacked into one, sprawling and low to the ground with only one floor. From the dinner table, their keen ears could pick up the commotion in the courtyard, the sounds carrying through the air like whispers on the wind. "Sounds like they are back," King Jack said to the other two. He was a Caucasian male with dark orange hair on his head and face, and a tail that matched. Standing about 5'10", he had an athletic build, suggesting strength and agility. "Come on, let's go see what they brought back for everyone," Freya retorted. She was one of the king's pack lords, a Caucasian woman who appeared slightly older than the rest, with dark grayish hair. Short and of medium weight, she carried herself with a sense of authority. The two stood up, followed by Sebastian, a man with similar features to King Jack, and another one of his pack lords. They headed for the castle's front doors. Upon exiting, they could still see beasts making their way to the courtyard. King Jack and Sebastian both transformed into 13-foot saber-toothed tigers with long, sharp tusks and dark orange fur. Freya, however, transformed into a harpy eagle, a dark grayish color, standing about 12 feet tall, and flew towards the courtyard, while the two ran, reaching the courtyard in no time at all. The beast villagers surrounded the group, forming a circle around them, awaiting the king's and pack lords' arrival as they gazed hungrily at the wagon of dead animals of various species. It was one of the largest food supplies a group had brought back during a hunt. First to arrive was Freya, landing dead center of the circle. Arriving a few moments later, and pushing through the crowd were King Jack and Sebastian. After all changing back to human form, looking toward the wagon, a large smile grew on the king's face. Walking up to Georgina, King Jack had given her a kiss on the forehead. Looking down, they all noticed Kong lying on the ground, on his back, eyes closed. Without saying a word, the king turned his head back towards Georgina. He had run into some sort of trouble. "The injury is on his back," Georgina informed, looking at the king, who cared deeply about each and every one of his beast people. Kneeling down, the king lifted Kong's upper body to have a look at his back. Blood was on the ground and still slowly dripping from his back despite the wrapping. "None of us saw who did this to him," she continued. "All I know is apparently they were humans." The king gently laid Kong back down and called a couple of beasts over to carry him to his cabin for proper rest and treatment. After doing so, the king stood to his feet to speak with Georgina while Kong's body was being picked and carried away. "Humans, you say, huh?" "That's what he told us. I'm guessing wherever he went, there was a village nearby." "Is that so?" the king replied right before turning 180 degrees, lifting both his arms to signify he was about to give a speech and the others should be quiet. "First of all, let's give it up for your pack lord Georgina and her group, as they never seem to disappoint." After those words, the beasts began cheering for a moment before the king quieted them down once more. "Eat up, enjoy your meals, and get plenty of rest, my beasts, as the time is coming. Most of you will be joining Sebastian and myself on the big search for the final demon lord's name. Once we have it, I will be able to summon the demon lords and obtain the power of a demon lord myself. Then I will share my power with you all, giving you the power of the demons as well. Then we can finally have our revenge on King Rolf and his military. I can't wait to see the look on his face once he sees that we, his so-called children, have obtained the power he has been searching years to find. What I really can't wait to see is that look when we kill him and his entire military with that same power. Then the entire kingdom of Fonda, along with its villagers, will be ours to control. Heck, I may even turn the villagers into demons as well, giving us our own demon army. We will have the most powerful kingdom in the world. and it doesn't have to stop there. We can take control of other kingdoms, doing everything King Rolf could not, for we will have the power. The beasts began to cheer at the king's words once again. Georgina placed both hands on the wagon, along with one of the apes who carried it to the village. Together, they tipped it over, and all the carcasses spilled onto the floor. The other beasts either grabbed their portions and left or devoured them right there. Come now, you three. King Jack spoke. Let's return to the castle. We need to have us a little meeting out back. Transforming into their beast forms, all but Georgina immediately took off. She grabbed one of the carcasses with her large teeth before sprinting away. Back at the castle cabin, they all entered and went out to the back, a large, open area in the woods. Georgina dropped the carcass by the kitchen table before joining the others. Out of all the beast people, they were the only 4 who preferred their meals cooked. Though it wasn't a necessity, they simply preferred the taste. They all stood beside one another in human form, before King Jack had begun to speak. So, Sebastian and I have been doing our best, going on late-night searches while you all slept, revisiting the caves night after night. We grew tired a long time ago of looking around blindly for the final cave. We had begun thinking there must be some clues, or something that points to where the final cave is. And that's when we started trying to piece the puzzle together. Unfortunately, the Praesor's language isn't easy to learn, and it's not like we have help anymore. Regardless, we've been doing the best we could, and which is why we have both good and bad news. What's the good news? Asked Freya immediately. Because Sebastian and I have become a bit more knowledgeable, we found out that there actually are clues hidden within the messages and symbols in the caves. The Praesors left clues on how to return to their previous caves as a safety net while on their mission, written only in the Praesors' language, so those who weren't Praesors wouldn't find them. In addition, we've also found out they performed rituals which led them in the direction, or directions the Demon King wanted them to go, which not everybody know this, were areas that had the highest population of Praesors. They left clues on those areas they had to travel next as well, which we can assume was another safety net. And the bad news? Asked Georgina, anxious to hear it. There are no clues on how to get to exactly where the caves are. Only the general area of the caves, since the Praesor's mission wasn't the caves. The caves were just used as shelter, so we will still have to do a lot of searching once we get there. What do you mean by get there? Georgina asked, confused. We should already be here, in the general area of the last cave. That's why we built this village, and been living here all these years. Oh, I wasn't done with the bad news. Continued the king. What I'm about to say is what truly makes it bad news. The final cave isn't here. We believe it's near the kingdom of Fonda. Unbelievable, Georgina said with frustration in her voice. The clues from the rituals point in that direction. Now we may have to check other areas the Praesors traveled just in case, but there is no doubt we will have to go there. I know we haven't traveled all around the world or anything. However, I can't think of a place right now that has or had more Praesors than Fonda. Remember, even our so-called father, or king, or whatever he wanted to be. King Rolf was also a Praesor. He too praised demons and the Demon King. I never wanted myself nor either one of us to go near that place again until after we've obtained the demon energy, said Georgina. I know how you feel, responded King Jack, which is why I've decided I don't want everyone on this search, nor do I want just anyone on this search. I only want our strongest. At least 10 of our strongest needs to be on this, including Sebastian and I. This search could take days, weeks, months, or perhaps even longer than that. So who's our strongest 10? Asked Freya. Hard to say, Jack answered. I'm not even sure who our strongest 5 are. So how do you suppose we figure that out? Freya then asked. Should we make them fight? Yes, Sebastian quickly responded. No, the king retorted. I don't want us fighting against one another. I don't want any accidental deaths, just in case someone goes too far. Most of all, I don't want any grudges held when one outbests the other. If anything, I'd rather them fight someone else. Humans, we know nor care about any of them. Besides, they will be what gives us the most trouble anyway. Okay, but what humans? Asked Georgina. Are you saying you want them to just go out and fight people while we watch? Well, no, not quite, said Jack, rubbing his chin in thought. The 4 stood for a moment of silence as Jack brainstormed. However, little did they know, Sebastian was doing some brainstorming himself. How about this? How about once Kong recovers, he could lead us back to where he was injured? That way, if there's a village nearby, we could find it, and we can have them go against the people there. You want them to fight a whole village at once? Are you mad, brother? Asked King Jack, looking at Sebastian. No, he responded. Not at the same time. Maybe we can sneak in at night, nap them and bring them back here. Once here we can force them to fight by threatening and telling them it's the only way to earn their freedom back. Or maybe we can lie and tell them if they don't fight we will send a whole army to attack their kingdom. And if we have to send that army, then it will be their fault when lives are taken. This way they feel obligated to fight. And if you look, we can even use this area back here as an arena to make them fight. It can be like our very own tournament. A small grin had grew on Jack's face as he had become intrigued. That sounds good, but it also sounds a lot easier said than done, even if we did move at night. Won't people wake up once they feel something trying to snatch them? Freya asked. True. He sighed, his plans momentarily derailed. Well, how about if Ares goes as well? After hearing those words, Jack could no longer contain himself, letting out the biggest smile he possibly could. That's it, brother, he exclaimed while patting Sebastian on the back. If Ares goes along with his gift, he'll make sure the humans remain asleep until we return here. Exactly, and if they have villagers there that can injure Kong to that degree, then that means they should make worthy opponents our beasts, said Sebastian. Agreed, brother, I like it. We will give Kong some time to heal, then move forward with your idea. A tournament. Our beasts versus the humans to find out which of our beasts can go on the search with us. Man, words can't express how excited I've just become. And with that, their meeting was finished. The four returned to the castle, stepping back inside. It wasn't necessary to be outside to converse, but as wild animals, the lure of the outdoors always trumped the indoors. As the days passed, King Jack and his pack lords, Sebastian, Georgina, and Freya, ensured Kong received the best possible care. They fed him, cleaned him, checked on him constantly, and diligently monitored the healing of his wound. An impatient King Jack eagerly anticipated Kong's recovery, having already decided that on the very first night Kong felt well enough to move freely, they would proceed with their plans. After a week had passed, and despite Kong not being in top condition or even fully mobile, King Jack's impatience spurred him to devise another plan. Kong would stay in human form, and they would carry him on one of their backs, just like Georgina had done when he first got the injury. That day, eager to waste no more time, the four prepared to move out, with the addition of Kong and Ares. They preferred to keep the group small for several reasons, deciding that no one else was needed for the task at hand. The late hour found the group ready to proceed. Georgina, again bearing Kong's weight, walked in front, the pack close behind, until Kong guided them to the site of his initial meeting with the two. A silent frown crossed Kong's features. So they succeeded in cutting down the tree, he mused. This is where I first encountered them, he announced, causing the group to stop. When I pursued them, they fled in that direction first, he added, pointing. So it's possible their village is that way, as they could have been fleeing for backup. Inputting Georgina. Then we'll proceed in that direction until we've found the village, the king declared, right before the group headed towards the tree line. For the villagers of Wakahira, it seemed like any other night. Sleep offered a brief respite from the predictable cycle of work and daily life. But fate had other plans. Unbeknownst to them, this night was a turning point, a silent prelude to events that would irrevocably change their world. The group breached the tree line and entered Wakahira, emerging amidst the homes of Jabari, Ada, Omari, and their neighbors. Almost ignoring their immediate surroundings, they advanced with heightened amusement, as if walking into a chocolate factory. Their hybrid eyes granted them a clear vision despite the darkness. It's like I can already tell this village is huge, Freya commented as they continued down the road, heads on swivels. Sebastian then asked, where should we even start? They were all captivated by the sight of Wakahira within first few minutes of being there. We might as well stop here, King Jack suggested. A place like this must be crawling with worthy foes, so anywhere we stop, it probably doesn't matter. The group halted, and Kong, following instructions, dismounted from Georgina's back to stay with the wagon while the others ventured toward their first home. In the quiet of their home, an older woman had just drifted off to sleep after a relaxing shower, her pores open and her body snuggled close to her husband. But the peace was shattered when she felt a hand clamp over her mouth, gripping it tightly. She tried desperately to scream, but the hand clamped over her mouth stifled any real sound. Tears welled in her eyes as she watched Ares, who appeared to her as a random naked man, emit a strange substance from his hands, directly into her husband's face. She tensed, hearing the shushing right next to her ear. "Just go back to sleep," the king whispered, his tone menacing despite its softness. Turning her eyes and moving her head just slightly, she saw another naked man standing at the foot of their bed, one hand across his midsection, the other on his chin, a large smile plastered on his face. Georgina nor Freya could be seen since they waited by the front door. Ares then emitted the same substance into her face, and before she knew it, her world went black. She passed out, with no hope of waking up anytime soon. Carrying the two outside, the king and Sebastian dropped their bodies into the wagon like old sacks. "Well, that's two, but we need a lot more than this," King Jack said softly. By manipulating the door latches, the beast people were easily able to break into the villagers' homes undetected, repeating the process until they were satisfied with the body count. After they were done, the group headed back towards the woods, passing Jabari, Ada, Omari, and their neighbors' homes once more. "Maybe next time we will start with these homes," said King Jack right before they re-entered the woods. Maneuvering a wagon full of dead weight wouldn't have been an easy task in human form. So transforming, all the men aside from Kong pushed, pulled and controlled the wagon, making it tons easier with their strength. Unfortunately for the group, and even more unfortunate for the villagers, the group had kidnapped people from an area that just so happened to be predominantly non-gifted. "Where am I?" a female villager whispered, her voice trembling. As her eyes fluttered open, she found herself in a dimly lit space, surrounded by other villagers. They were all tied up, still lost in slumber. A wave of panic washed over her as she realized she was the first to awaken after they had been kidnapped the night before. The rough ropes bit into her skin, a stark reminder of their dire situation. Fear gnawed at her, but a flicker of determination ignited within her. She had to find a way to free herself and the others before it was too late. Her eyes darted around, trying to make sense of their surroundings. The space was a crude shed or cabin, constructed entirely of rough-hewn wood. No furniture adorned the interior, no comforting paintings hung on the walls. It was a stark, empty space. The air hung heavy with the scent of damp wood and fear. She strained her ears, listening for any sound that might indicate their captor's presence, but silence answered, along with the sounds of sleeping villagers. The weight of their predicament settled upon her, but she knew she couldn't succumb to despair. She had to remain vigilant, to find a way out of this nightmare. "Wake up! Wake up! You all have to wake up!" she shouted. Little by little, villagers started to stir, but it wasn't her shouting that had awakened them. Unbeknownst to her, Ares's green sleeping musk was wearing off after a few hours. "What's going on?" a middle-aged male asked, just as confused as everyone else. No one responded, just confused looks as heads twisted and turned. "I think we all got taken last night." "But by who and why?" a mother villager spoke. No one had an answer yet. Chatter and commotion began to fill the room. Moments later, the sound of a door opening silenced everyone almost instantly. Their hearts dropped as they heard measured steps approaching. Walking down the small hallway, King Jack and his pack lords entered the large empty area in the cabin. The villagers were shocked to see 4 nude individuals enter the room with animal-like features. Whenever they would transform, their massive bodies caused their garments to rip. Although they preferred being in human form, they were animals that could turn into humans and not the other way around, so they didn't mind being nude. Of course, the villagers of Wakahira didn't know. They thought they had been taken by a strange set of people. The 4 made it to the middle of the room and looked at everyone with smug expressions. People, King said after beginning to speak. "I know you're all wondering why you're here. Let me be frank. My people and I are about to embark on a perilous quest. As king, my pack lords and I must select the strongest among us to undertake this journey. That's where you come in. You will help us determine who possesses the greatest strength and combat prowess. Because when trouble inevitably finds them, they must be capable of defending themselves. Therefore, you will all participate in a tournament." The people's hearts dropped after hearing those words. Most of them weren't fighters, just regular, go-to-work everyday folk. A few were gifted, but not that many. "A tournament?" a man proclaimed. "We didn't sign up for no damn tournament. We don't even know you people." speaking for everyone. Unfortunately, fate has chosen you. Just as you are ignorant of us, we are of you. The king retorted, his voice edged with steel. But heed this. Fight, and you may yet live. Resist, or try to escape, and we will send a whole army of our men to your village. I know you all don't want to be responsible for a war which will lead to casualties. Who knows, you may even lose someone you care most about. Participation is your only guaranteed way out of this mess. Hearts dropped, and everyone had begun to get rowdy as they didn't want to fight in the first place. The few that were gifted felt a sense of confidence that they could save everyone. Settle down, people, said the king. So, we do not waste any more of your time or ours. The tournament will begin shortly. We need just a few moments to finish preparing the arena. Then the four exited slowly without saying another word. Arriving behind the castle, the four surveyed the open area once again. King Jack raised an arm, and a large blue lightning strike erupted from his hand, felling trees with ease. The initial strike carved a path a mile long, leaving a trail of fallen timber. He lifted his other arm, unleashing another strike in a different direction, then swept his arm from left to right, toppling tree after tree. Following up, Sebastian channeled his lightning to obliterate the stubs and fallen trees, splintering them into even smaller pieces. Georgina conjured balls of fire in her hands. Moving away from the group and closer to the fallen trees, she set them ablaze, flames licking at the wood. The four lingered for a few moments, watching as the fire consumed the fallen trees, reducing them to ash. Once the conflagration subsided, Freya shifted into her harpy eagle form. Her wings, as strong as steel, propelled her forward with incredible speed. Using her gift of speed, she flew alongside the fires, generating powerful gusts that scattered the flames, ensuring nothing remained. Regrouping, they were satisfied. The four had successfully created a fighting arena for the tournament. They walked back to the prisoner's cabin, the group returning with Ares in tow. The arena is finished, King Jack announced upon entering. Now, you will all be escorted to it. And to ensure none of you attempt to escape in the process, he said, gesturing towards Ares. He will be putting you all back to sleep now. The four exited the cabin. Ares, without transforming into his honey badger form, released a green, gassy mist from his mouth, engulfing the entire cabin. Within seconds, everyone inside succumbed to slumber. The four summoned a few beast people and directed them to the new arena to carry the villagers. With that task assigned, they began gathering the first group of fighters. Hours passed before the sleep spell finally wore off, and by that time, the sun had risen once more. The villagers awakened, even more frightened than before. They found themselves outside in the woods this time. Opposite them, sitting in their own separate wooden thrones, the four higher-ups, with about 50 yards of space between them. A little ahead and off to the right, a group of nude individuals with animal-like features cheered at the prisoner's awakening. A few feet to the side, an injured Kong stood, eager to watch the tournament. Now that you have awakened, King Jack proclaimed, the tournament can begin. The group cheered even louder. I hope you all are ready, he continued, for everyone from both sides will be chosen at random. Fighting a few naked freaks shouldn't be too hard, right? I think it should be quite easy, one of the gifted villagers said to the other, sitting next to him, speaking in a low voice. I'm Jeremiah. Yeah, I'm Malik. I live a few houses down from you. I've seen you around the neighborhood a few times. And to answer your question, I'm not sure. It depends on what they can do. But I will agree with one thing. They certainly do look like freaks. They don't even wear clothes. Just a community of naked, abnormal-looking people that probably sleep with one another all day. The king flicked his fingers, and a tiny lightning bolt zipped into the air, hovering over the group of humans. Then, with another flick, a second lightning bolt appeared, hovering over the group of beast people. The king announced, whoever the bolt touches will be the first two to fight. On the human side, the bolt fell and zapped a frail, dark-skinned woman with short hair on the arm. Ow! She squealed, rubbing her arm before standing up reluctantly. On the beast side, the bolt fell and hit a Caucasian male on the arm as well. He was quite hairy with large hands. He rose, gazing at his opponent with a grin on his face, while she looked terrified. Now, can you both step out into the open area, opposite each other? Jack asked politely. The first to move was the beast man, so excited he almost ran. The woman, however, hesitated, stopping a few feet in front of her group. This is our first matchup of the day. Please give us a show. and remember to fight with all your might. Now, are you two ready? Jack asked. Fight. The woman tried to put on a brave face as she watched him step closer, his arms raised, mimicking a wild animal. You might be right, Jeremiah, said Malik. This actually could be easy. These people might be nothing more than a bunch of freaks. Within seconds, the man transformed into his true form. A 12-foot grizzly bear with large teeth and a face that would send shivers down the spine of any defenseless being, such as the one he were in front of. The villagers were shocked, stunned by the sight. All they could do was sit with their mouths open. Well, what are these people? What kind of gift do they have? This isn't like anything I've ever seen before, Malik said. Just as quickly as his confidence had grown, it vanished almost completely. Trying to escape the fight she had already lost, even before it truly began, the woman immediately ran left, toward the castle and village. Stomping his foot, a tall wall grew from the ground in front of her, blocking her path. The grizzly bear charged, and the woman turned around, screaming for her life. Picking her up, the grizzly bear threw her back to the center of the arena, her body crashing down hard. Before she could even stand, the bear was charging once more. The woman, too frightened to move, and injured as well. She just laid there until the bear was within striking distance. With his large fist, he repeatedly punched the woman, pummeling her into the ground until she was unable to move. It looked more like a gruesome beating than a fight. Once the grizzly bear finished punching her lifeless body, he stood there and faced the king and pack lords. Great job, the king said with a smile. Wasn't much of a show, but that was a great display of strength and aggression. We will consider you once we are ready to decide who will join Sebastian and me on the search. Transforming back into a human, the satisfied beast returned to his spot on the hard ground. Wow, I thought the woman was going to put up a better fight than that, the king whispered to the other three. Maybe the next matchup will be more satisfying, Georgina said. What are we going to do? Jeremiah asked, terrified. I don't know, Malik responded. The worst part is everyone here looks like they're from the neighborhood, and there aren't many gifted people living there. Still, I hope I'm wrong. The king flicked 2 more tiny lightning bolts in the same fashion. Get ready, the same rules apply. Whoever it touches, please step up to the front.